Hi guys, Assalamualaikum and very good morning. How are you today? As we know, we are already in 7 weeks, yeah, correct? 7 week. So the topic we'll cover in 7 week is expansion device. This is one part from the HVAC system. So we will study about in deep about expansion device that will cover about the introduction about the expansion device and type of expansion device, description, function in refrigeration cycle, and then advantages and disadvantages of expansion device, and the second last application and function of expansion device, and the last topic we will try to conclude what we study in this chapter, right? So I hope in this topic you should be bring all this content after finish the class. Okay, we go to the first topic. That one is about the introduction of the expansion valve or expansion device in the HVAC. So actually the basic function of expansion device used in refrigeration system are to reduce pressure from condenser pressure to evaporator pressure, as we know, while we will reduce the pressure from the condenser to evaporator, correct? You know why? Because we try to reduce the temperature. Okay, and then the control function, which may involve the supply of liquid to the evaporator at the rate or at the which it is evaporated. This determines the efficiency with which evaporator surface is utilized. Should be control the volume, the supply of refrigeration. That's why in the HVAC we can control the temperature by the control the volume from this one, and then it control the mass flow rate of refrigerant according to the load on the evaporator. Yeah, we can control the mass flow, and then decrease the pressure and temperature of flowing refrigerant. Yeah, from this part we can control this one also. Okay, we proceed to the next slide. Types of expansion device. Okay, the first one is the type with the capillary tubes. The second one we will introduce about constant pressure or automatic expansion valve, and then also we will study thermostatic expansion valve, hand or manually expansion valve. So the last is second last is flow type expansion valve, high side float valve, low side float valve, and then the last type is electronic expansion valve. Okay, we will go one by one, and then we try to understand how the process work in each of type expansion device. Description. Not use one flow control or metering of the refrigerant is accomplished by use of the temperature sensing bulb filled with a similar gas as in the system that causes the valve to open against the spring pressure in the valve body as the temperature on the bulb increases. As the suction line temperature decreases, so does the pressure in the bulb, and therefore on the spring, causing the valve to close. On air conditioning system with the TX valve is often more efficient than other design that do. This description actually explain about the process that happen on the expansion device, how this work. So if the pressure increase, the suction line will be closed because the pressure already push the spring to close the valve. This is how the supply or flow rate of refrigerant increase or decrease process. If the flow rate is increased because of the pressure is decreased, so that's why the spring will be released. Yes, if the spring release is mean the valve is open. That's why the supply of refrigerant will be increased. This is how the expansion valve work actually. The function in refrigerant cycle, expansion valve are fluid restricting device that cause a pressure drop of the working fluid. The valve needle remain open during steady state operation. So the needle is mean the diaphragm within the valve of input and valve of output. So the diaphragm will control of pressure. If the pressure drop, the valve of open, the valve on the line input will open. So the spring will be release the valve. So that's why we'll supply amount of refrigerant into the needle. The size of the opening or the position of the needle is related to the pressure and the temperature of the evaporator. There are three main parts of the expansion valve that regulate the position of needle: a sensor bulb and the end of the evaporator monitor the temperature change of the operator. This change the temperature create a change in pressure on the diaphragm. For example, if the temperature in the evaporator increase, the pressure in the diaphragm increase, cause the needle to lower. So if lower, will open the valve. Okay. So automatic expansion valve, this work in the response to the pressure change in the evaporator due to increase in load, pressure increase, or due to decrease in load, pressure decrease. So this automatically system will control the needle. Needle is mean the diaphragm. Diaphragm is mean within the space within the valve open output or within the output and input. So the space that from the valve of output and valve input. So this pressure will control. If the higher, will stop the supply of refrigerant by pushing the spring. So I will show you how to do the that one, how to schematic. I will show you later on. Now we go to the second bullet. This valve maintain a constant pressure through the varying load on the evaporator, controlling the quantity of refrigerant flowing into evaporator. So if automatically system, they will control the pressure. If the pressure constant, the supply will constant. Okay, the automatic expansion valve open and close to either increase or decrease the amount of refrigerant feeding into the evaporator in the response to the pressure of the refrigerant in the evaporator. Correct. So the pressure will control the flow rate. This flow rate is related to the control volume, how much we will supply to evaporator. Okay, this one. This figure will show the condition input and output. So which one the input? This one is input. Yes, this one is input. What input? Refrigerant input. And then this one to output. So this output is to evaporator system. And then this one from the condenser system. So this diaphragma we call needle. Yes, this one needle is diaphragma. So this spring and this spring is control the condition of pressure. As we know, the spring have the we call the spring constant. We call in the K constant in the formula of the force in the calculation of force in the list one of the force of the spring. K is constant spring, while the X is distance what the spring we can expand. So while the volume is controlled by the pressure. If the pressure increase, so volume will reduce. So that's why P is opposite, or we call linearly opposite. Yes. So if the pressure increase, the volume will increase. So we'll push the K. K is spring constant. So this one is for control the pressure. If the pressure increase, we'll close the supply of refrigerant. So that's why the flow into the evaporator will control. We can control the flow rate. Okay, we go to application of automatic expansion valve. The automatic expansion valves are used wherever constant temperature is required. For example, milk chilling unit and water cooler, of course, because we will control the temperature by the control the pressure. So the pressure relate to the temperature, correct? If the pressure is lower, so the will reduce the temperature. So if we want to control the temperature, just control the pressure, correct? So these are also used in the home freezer and small commercial refrigeration system where hermetic compressor are used. So actually this is commonly used in the refrigerator system. Yeah? So we can control the valve system by automatically or manually, anything. Just control the pressure condition, and we automatically we can control the temperature. Capillary tube. So what is the capillary tube? A capillary tube is a long, narrow tube diameter of constant. So if we can see the diameter of capillary tube is reduced. It's not similar. Okay, we observe from this tip first. Maybe diameter is higher compared to this one. You can see this one need to be increased by the by the joining. So it's made the diameter is reduced. The refrigerant has to overcome the frictional resistance of furrow by tube walls. This led to some pressure drop, so we can drop the pressure. Okay. Actually, this is a phenomena. Actually, we already study in the um, what we call make that cause what one this one uh, fluid mechanics, yeah, this phenomena. So advantages and disadvantages. Advantages. Uh, the first, it's inexpensive, correct? It doesn't have any moving part, hence it doesn't require maintenance. Okay, very good. It cannot adjust itself to changing flow conditions in response to daily and seasonal variation in ambient temperature and load. Okay, actually we cannot control the temperature by ambient environment, because in the capillary tube already used by drop pressure using the drop of diameter tube, so we cannot control by ambient environment change. It is susceptible to clogging because of narrow bore of the tube. Okay, you can acceptable this one. It can operate efficiently at another condition. Okay, this one the dependence and disadvantage of capillary tube. Okay, now we go to thermostatic expansion valve type. So what is the thermostatic expansion valve? So thermostatic valve control the flow of refrigerant through the evaporator such a way that the quality of the vapor leaving the evaporator will always in superheated condition. So we can control the condition of refrigerant always in superheated condition. Its operation is used for maintaining a constant degree of superheated at the evaporator outlet. Okay, we can check that later. Yes. Okay, this one. Okay, the figure illustrates how the expansion by using thermal condition. Okay, we check first which one the input. Okay, this side is input from the condenser, and then this one output into the evaporator. Okay, needle within this spring, this one needle diaphragma, this one the control the volume of diaphragma. So the spring will control the pressure. Okay, what the capillary tube do is to control the temperature output from the valve. So what happened? The temperature here will control the this resistance. So if we show the higher of temperature will affect in this diaphragma. So the pressure increase will stop the valve. Yes, correct. This one the needle stand. So the push, this one the diaphragma will close. The supply of refrigerant. This screw will control the tighten or the pressure. We can control the pressure, how much we need. Correct. Now we go to advantages and disadvantages. The first one, it provides excellent control of refrigeration capacity as the supply of refrigerant to the evaporator matches the demand. Okay, we can control the demand. how much we need the supply of refrigerant, and then how much the pressure we need in the evaporator. And then we go to the next. It ensures that the evaporator operates efficiently by preventing starving under the high load conditions. So we can predict how much pressure operation, and then supplying volume control, how much the flow rate. Yes, and then it protect the compressor from the slugging by ensuring the minimum degree of superheated under all condition of load, if properly selected. Yes, correct. So the next, the filler bulb must always be in good thermal contact with the refrigerant tube. This one, the disadvantages of thermal valve. In the thermal expansion valve cannot be used since very small extent of superheating. So we need a higher of superheating. Now we go to next type of the expansion valve. We go to electronic type. So what is the electronic type expansion valve? An electronic expansion valve consists of an orifice, and a needle in front of it. So we control the pressure by electronic system. And then the next, the needle moves up and down in response to the magnitude of current in the heating element. So actually, the valve will control by heating element. So we use a heating element inside of the expansion valve. If the refrigerant will superheated, the resistance offered by heat element will be less. So how to control the volume? If element shown in the sensor, actually the sensor will read, and then the element will work. First time the sensor will give information into the element, heating element, to give the resistance or to higher in the using the heating element. If resistance higher, is mean the supply of the refrigerant will increase. Yes. If the element work or increase, is mean the supply, the refrigerant will reduce. Yes. Okay, we will see how the electronic type expansion work. Yes. Here we can see illustration of electronic expansion valve work. Okay, this one actually is a sensor that give information into the heater to work higher or lower. If the sensor read the evaporator is higher, it means give the information to heater to work to lower. To higher, to push a needle to supply refrigerant increase. If the supply lower because of the liquid sensor thermistor read is lower, so the heater work resistance is higher. Okay. You know, I hope you understand about this schematic, the electronic expansion valve work. The supply depend on the heater element. Okay, we go to the advantages and of the function expansion device. The first one, an expansion valve is used to control the superheated of the refrigerant exiting the evaporator and is designed to maintain a set superheat in the normal operating condition. It reduces the high pressure liquid refrigerant to low pressure liquid refrigerant. It controls the flow of refrigerant according to the load. Yeah. And the expansion devices available to suit many different domestic, commercial, and light industrial refrigeration and air conditioning application. Okay, now we go to manually of expansion valve, or we call hand operated. So what is the hand operated expansion valve? Is the manual valve expansion, is that it makes no automatic adjustment in accordance with a change in system of cooling load. So what we do in this expansion valve is by manually screw, tighten or release the screw. If we tighten, what happen? The supply. So we just adjust the screw by manually. It must open or close manual each time you change the load on the system. Equipment operator must be on the hand at each change of the load on the system when automatic control is required. Yes, just replace the automatic by manually. So this is the screw that we can control the supplying of refrigerant. So just control this screw and then we can get the flow rate we need. Just simple. Another type is float type expansion valve. So we use the floating like the balloon, the system of the depending on the force of buoyancy. Actually, this type is like the valve that control volume in the tank. So, float type expansion valve are normally used with flooded evaporators in large capacity refrigeration system. A float type valve opens or closes depending upon the liquid level. So just control level. Okay, we can check how schematic work of the low side. Actually, this one the low side system. So a low side float valve maintains a constant liquid level in flooded evaporator or float chamber attached to the evaporator when the load on the system increases or decreases. Okay, we check first which one, the input valve and the output valve. Okay, this one is input valve, this one is output valve. This one to supply to evaporator, this one is for a condenser. So this valve will control the level of surface, the float control the surface of the water, the liquid. If the float is lower, it means we'll close the supplying. So it should be increase the input into the valve system. Okay, this one is low side float valves. And then another one is the low side from the chamber, yes, system. Okay, in this type we will utilize the liquid only, while the vapor will go to compressor, and then the liquid will use to control the supplying of the refrigerant from condenser. High side float valve. In this type, float chamber is placed on the high pressure side between the condenser and the evaporator. The refrigerant in the condenser moves to the float valve. As the level of the refrigerant rises, the float ball moves up and open the float valve that allows for the passage of the refrigerant through the needle valve. The level of the refrigerant coming from the condenser reduce when there is less load on the plant. When the level of the refrigerant drops down, thus reducing the flow, the refrigerant through it. Okay, we can check the schematic. Here, this is a schematic of high float control. This one the evaporator, compressor, condenser, and then this one is control the using the float, high side float assembly. So, if liquid to supply to evaporator increase, so the valve will open. If the control lower, we close the we'll close the valve. So we need the high level surface of the refrigerant to open the supplying refrigerant into the evaporator. That's why we call the high side of float symbol. So different type of the lower. So only work different, but still using the float. Okay, that's all for our class today in the 7 week that cover on the expansion valve. So if you have question, you can email me or you can text me in the message, and then we can go to forum in the ULearn. We can discuss there. So next time we will see the other topic, other part of HVAC. Thank you. Assalamualaikum and very good morning.